Now look, I don't want to blow anyone's minds here. I want you to take a moment, take a deep breath right down into your belly. 3 count inward, hold for 2, 3 count outward. Center your thoughts, focus on relaxing your posture. Let your shoulders drop, loosen your jaw. There you go, all relaxed and peaceful, right. So try not to tense up when I tell you this, but Mark Elliott Zuckerberg, CEO of Meta Platforms, formerly called Facebook, and rather hilariously born in guess what year? 1984. But you know, the dead-eyed lizard person doing a human impression, head of Meta, thinks, now wait for it, but the boss man of Meta thinks that his Meta product, the Meta Quest 3, is, and he's saying this publicly for everybody to hear, that the Meta Quest 3, his own product that he sells to people, is in fact a better product than a newly launched product from a major competitor.
All right, guys. So I finally tried Apple's Vision Pro. And, I have to say that before this, I expected that Quest would be the better value for most people since it's really good and it's like 7 times less expensive. But after using it, I don't just think that Quest is the better value. I think that Quest is the better product, period.
And as stupid as this all is, if he was going to publicly say anything about Apple's product in the same breath as his own product, was anybody expecting Zucker-borg to be all like, oh man, they really smashed it. This is really embarrassing. Sure does make our stuff look like stupid little toys for babies. He's actually not wrong though. And frankly, agreeing with Zucker-borg on anything makes my bones flinch. But it is a better product across the board, the Meta Quest 3, that is, than the Apple Vision Pro. It just is. And no, I've not tried the Apple Vision Pro myself, even if I wasn't struggling to pay rent and bills and whatnot, and I had a lazy, $6,400, which is what a local Aussie importer is charging because Apple themselves aren't even selling the product to Aussies yet. But even if I had the cash, I wouldn't spend it on an Apple Vision Pro. I couldn't even justify buying one for the sake of content creation. So when I say that I agree with Zucker-borg that the Meta Quest 3 is a better product than the Apple thing, the thing I haven't tried, and I have tried extensively the Quest 3, I'm not speaking personally for personal experiences, but I am reflecting what I'm hearing everybody else say, because there is a very strong consensus on several of the things we're going to talk about today. But the Apple Vision Pro, it literally does nothing useful for me that I can't do on the Quest 3, and in many cases legitimately do better on the Quest 3 because it's a far more mature product for VR and MR. Especially considering the fact that I do a lot of VR stuff, which the Apple Vision Pro doesn't really do well. In fact, Apple have even banned the developers from even calling their own apps VR. It doesn't want to have anything to do with the VR name because, well, Apple got Apple. But the Borg King himself was carefully more specific.
Quest is better for the vast majority of things that people use mixed reality for. Now,
he is specifically talking about mixed reality, while I mostly use fully immersive virtual reality more often. Now, one of the things you see people showing off most when posting to social media about their new Apple Vision Pros and whatnot is just having floating screens of various kind around while they see the real world past them from inside the unit. And we saw a flood of exactly this kind of thing when the Quest 3 landed a few months back, because it had, for the first time, full color, full motion pass-through, whereas the Quest 2 just had a very, very grainy, dodgy, blurry, black and white pass-through thing, which wasn't very useful for anything except being able to see where your drink was on your coffee table if you wanted to get a drink when you're in VR. And we saw a flood of exactly this kind of thing when the Quest 3 landed a few months back. Everything from the absolute mundanity of washing dishes while a little YouTube video floats over here, or sitting in coffee shops with it on out in public looking like a bit of a goofball, all the way through to idiots risking their own lives and the lives of other people with stunts like filming themselves using it while operating a car, for crying out loud. To those people, by the way, under my brutal rule, 18 months in prison, no question, no parole, no chance. You put yourself and other people at danger for a stunt for the sake of a social media post? Piss off. Jail. Now. Stay there. You are adding nothing useful to society. You need to be removed from it. And of course, the new Apple Vision Pro users are copy-pasting that exact content all over the place, except because now it's a new Apple product in a new product category from Apple. It's all very exciting, isn't it? So it's getting a lot more attraction and attention from, normies outside of the hobbyist spaces where the Quest 3 content tends to live.
Now, my friend Kenny is actually capturing this video on Quest's high-resolution mixed reality pass-through right now. We're just here in my living room, and you can see his browser windows and whatever else he's got running up here. So yeah, Quest 3 does high-quality pass-through with big screens, just like Vision Pro.
So, it's the first time a lot of people are seeing this version of mixed reality at all. So what Zuck's remote-controlled Android drone is doing is trying to make sure that these normies know that the vastly less expensive Quest 3 also does all of this stuff. Except, while his video, recorded on the Quest 3's own cameras, looks nice and crisp and clear and colourful, the fact is, there seems to be a lot of variation in the experiences people have been having with the Quest 3's cameras while doing this kind of stuff. I don't know why exactly, no one seems to. There's a lot of guesswork out there. Maybe there's different productions and they use different components. Maybe whoever supplies the camera components has a quality control issue. Maybe it's a calibration thing. But the fact is, a lot of people out there have been complaining online about excessively grainy pass-through quality that doesn't look anything like any of the demo footage they've been seeing. And some of that is at least user error. Basically, morons not understanding that all cameras work better when there's more light. And if you're using it in a very dark room, it's gonna look grainy, just like any camera. And most people's houses are darker than they think they are because our eyes, the human fleshball eye thingies, work surprisingly well at, well, we don't get grainy vision in the dark like cameras do for a start. But fact also is, I've heard very few complaints about this stuff from Apple Vision Pro users, which is frankly unsurprising. Apple have a decade-long history of refining the cameras they've been using in the iPhones and very heavily focused on promoting them as photography tools. And they're very, very good at it. And the image sensors they're using and the lenses they're using are very, very good. And also Apple's custom CPU chips are very smart at doing computational photography stuff to fix and hide flaws coming from the raw sensor data. Once a year when Apple have their event to launch the new line of iPhones, they spend a good 10 minutes talking about the computational photography and how the different layers of the image capture and they've got smushed together and cleverly masked and skin tones and this and smoothed out and all that clever stuff. All that technology is in the chip on the Apple Vision Pro too, and they're using it. Meanwhile, Meta use an off-the-shelf CPU called the Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2, which is pretty good, but it's simply not as good as Apple's custom CPUs. So while you can absolutely do basically all the MR stuff you're seeing in various AVP posts on the Quest 3 also, the consistency of that experience visually tends to vary a lot more. But it is, frankly, a good enough point where it's useful and practical, even if it's not an amazing visual experience all of the time. And useful and good enough is honestly an extremely fair price to pay considering the cost difference between the Meta Quest 3 and the Apple Vision Pro.
Quest, I think is just a lot more comfortable. We designed it to weigh 120 grams less, which makes a really big difference on your face. There's no wires that get in the way when you move around.
Neither device is comfortable out of the box. One of the most common things you'll see posted about both units is people replacing or modifying or otherwise adjusting somehow the default straps that come in the box to actually make the products legitimately comfortable to wear for more than a fistful of minutes. And if you're wondering what I use, I'll link to the review in the down below of my current favorite head strap that I've been using ever since I made that review. It is great. I've worn it for 8 hours, complete comfort. So check that in the down below if you're a Quest 3 user. Or possibly an Apple Vision Pro user, because there are some 3D prints around designed to adapt Quest 3 accessories, like straps, to the Apple Vision Pro. That's how big of a comfort issue it is out of the box. People have gone out of their way to 3D custom print devices to adapt third-party Quest accessories to the Apple Vision Pro. And as for the no wires thing, he's talking about Apple's bizarre choice of a tethered battery, ostensibly to make it way less on your face to try and make it even more comfortable. But It's front heavy anyway, according to everybody, so it could have been worse, I suppose. But yes, having to use a tethered battery pack that comes with a cable that drags down your body, I've done that for years on various VR devices, including the Quest 2 and the Quest 3, and the cable can be an issue on comfort and convenience, and even if you're careful, you'll still find it catching on your hands as you swing them around, or clothes, or furniture, or pets. I'd much rather have a built-in battery, which if I want to, I can also supplement with an external one, which I frequently do on the Quest 3. And again, link in the down below to a very smart external battery solution that doesn't drag a cable across your body, right down there.
Now, Apple's screen does have a higher resolution, and that's really nice. But I was surprised by how many trade-offs they had to make to the quality of the device and the comfort and ergonomics, and other aspects of the display and artifacts in order to get to them.
Notice how, aside from vague remarks about brightness, which I never run my Quest 3 at full brightness anyway, because it's uncomfortable to do so. It is too bright, in my opinion, and turning it all the way up washes out all the dark colors anyway, so I'm usually somewhere close to 40%. But he doesn't say why the Quest 3 is better, because it's not. He just kind of justified the lower quality screen and lower resolution screen by saying, well, Apple didn't make that choice, and that made them made other compromises. Unspecified compromises he completely glossed over. So a bit of hand-waving horseplot from old Marky Bot there. It's a little misdirection, a little magician's patter. But again, the Quest 3 does hit that good enough mark. The combination of a screen and lenses do give a very satisfying experience when gaming. It was a very noticeable upgrade from the Quest 2 when I got my Quest 3, and it's been great for gaming or watching passive content in VR or MR or on virtual cinema screens and the like. But Apple will have the advantage for work stuff. You see, the way perceived resolution works in VR headsets is tied to something we call PPD, or pixels per degree, because two headsets which otherwise use the same resolution, if they have a different field of view because of their lenses or other design choices, they effectively wrap that identical resolution and stretch it out more. So, 2K's worth of resolution might take up this much of visual field, or it might take up this much of visual field, but it's the same number of pixels, and the wider you stretch it, the lower that pixel per degree becomes. So, while the Quest 3 has a 264 by 2208 pixel per degree, I should have double checked that before I made this video. It's around about that anyway, which if you use marketing math and ignore how eyes work, you might call it a 4K resolution, and several headset manufacturers have made that cheeky little lie. But it's actually closer to 2K, because if you feed 2K to each eye, it doesn't magically become a 4K resolution. That's not how it works. But whatever is driving the image is rendering 4K, because it does 2K for this eye and 2K for this eye. So it's a bit wibbly in the minds of people who don't understand how this works, and marketers will take advantage of that. But you can effectively think about it as 2K, vaguely. And here's what's more, you can't actually watch a 2K movie in a floating screen and see 2K, because that virtual screen in the middle of your field of view isn't using the entire display panel. So, depending on the perceived screen size and how far from you it is and how big you've got it stretched out in virtual space, you're pretty much only ever seeing what looks to be about the same resolution, effectively, as a 1080p screen at about 40 centimeters away, at best. The Quest 3 has a PPD, or pixels per degree, of 25. Apple doesn't seem to be listing theirs on their spec sheets, but best I could find was iFixit, who estimated that the Vision Pro has a 34 PPD. That is a big leap visually. From 25 to 34, that is a huge difference. And that means if you were doing work-based things that have complex UIs, interfaces full of hard lines and fine details and lots of text, say, for example, you wanted to edit a video in MR or even VR, that would be a far more practical thing to try in the Apple device. But all of that said, doing that kind of workflow in a VR space is just a gimmick right now. It's so much less practical and efficient than just doing it the old-fashioned way at a desk with real 4K screens that are always precise and are always 4K and don't pixel crawl because they're moving around your field of vision, things like that. Anyone dreaming of doing, all-day workflows? Anyone dreaming of doing most all-day workflows on current generation, VR, MR tech is a bit of a moron, because it's just not practical.
Now, for input, Quest supports precision controllers that are great for games. Both headsets support hand tracking, but I found ours to be a little more accurate.
Not much to say on this, except it aligns with everything I've heard. While Apple have better gesture systems for controlling the UI for hands-only input than Quest does, basically everyone agrees it's a lot more laggy and less accurate than Quest's hand tracking, which is surprisingly good, really. I very rarely use it because I prefer controllers, but it is surprisingly good. The way the hand tracking works with the UI design is a very different story altogether. That needs a redesign, but the physical hand tracking and the accuracy of it is really good on the Quest 3. After this, he goes on a bit about the amount of content available, which, yes, the Quest has tons more content and apps and all that sort of stuff, because of course it does. The Quest 3 has access to everything published for the Quest 2 that launched like 3.5 years ago. Of course, Apple will be playing catch up for a while yet.
And if you want to watch YouTube or play Xbox on a big screen anywhere you go, that's only available on Quest for now.
Calling out the fact that, bizarrely, Apple's device doesn't even have a YouTube app is, well, yeah, it's so weird. There's several large content providers missing, like Netflix, for example. Apple signed a deal with Disney Plus for some exclusivity stuff there when it comes to 3D movies, which is so frustrating. But there are so many other content delivery apps that are just missing from Apple Vision Pro that I was expecting to be there. I thought it was a complete no-brainer. But from what Scuttlebutt says, it seems Apple is, of course, being a huge pain in the bum to work with on this for certain large content companies. Oh, to be a fly on that particular wall. And while content delivery on Quest is not ideal either, there's a lot more options to start with, and some workarounds for the stuff that is missing or lacking. Netflix's own Quest app, for example, is hot garbage, and has essentially been abandonware for years. It is practically useless, but it is there. And the Xbox thing, though? I mean, how long do you think that'll last? Xbox Cloud stuff literally just came back to the iPhone after MS and Apple sorted their crap out. So unless Marky Droid has done the sleazy BS of signing a secret timed exclusivity deal with MS to keep, VR, MR, Xbox Cloud computing on the Quest and Quest only for the foreseeable future, I can't imagine it'll be long before they put that on AVP too, because MS are very, very keen on having the Xbox Cloud stuff everywhere they can.
So, when I look around, it seems like there are a lot of people who just assumed that Vision Pro would be higher quality because it's Apple and it costs $3,000 more. But, honestly, I'm pretty surprised that Quest is so much better for the vast majority of things that people use these headsets for with that price differential.
And fair's fair. He's right with this. All things considered, especially the price, the Quest 3 is a much better device all around, full stop. The AVP is absolutely outclassing it on paper in a few places, technically speaking. But in the real world, with how real people use these things, I would absolutely spend my money on Quest 3 before I would an AVP. Apple are helping to mainstream AR and MR and VR concepts, even if I don't like using the VR word, and marketing, desirability of new technology, regardless of how useful it actually is, to normies, to make them want it, even if they don't need it, is what Apple do best, and they are wildly good at it. But much like Samsung worked to, position themselves as the not Apple, but very, 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 very similar to Apple, Android phone people, Mark clearly wants to be that, but for Apple's VR stuff. In fact, he's said it out loud.
Now, look, I know that some fanboys get upset whenever anyone dares to question if Apple's going to be the leader in a new category. But the reality is that every generation of computing has an open and a closed model. And yeah, in mobile, Apple's closed model won. But it's not always that way. If you go back to the PC era, Microsoft's open model was the winner. And in this next generation, Meta is going to be the open model. And I really want to make sure that the open model wins out again.
He wants to be the Android for VR, while Apple do their thing over there in the little closed ecosystem. And to hear Mark Zuckerberg go, hey, open systems, free. Yeah, no one's buying that from you, Mark. Open? I don't think you know what the word means. But the point is, Mark clearly wants to be what Samsung is to Apple when it comes to phones, but for VR stuff. And fake earnest, hey, I'm just a normal Joe talking to you from my living room. Aren't I so relatable and human? And I drink the coffee beverage and play the hula hoop games like humans do. Stuff from Mark is It's not earnest. It's carefully designed marketing. This was planned, carefully rehearsed, and tested and passed through lawyers and all that sort of stuff. This is marketing. This is not Mark being, oh, I'm just another person having a chat to you through the Instagram posts. Don't be fooled. He might be right on a lot of stuff he was talking about here, but he's not talking to you as a person. He's talking to you as a corporate entity looking for your money. He wants that money right there in your pocket to go in his pocket. Which, to be fair, we live in a capitalist society and we all want that. Have you got any spare money you could put in my pockets? I really could use it. Spare money. And we're still a couple of generations, at least, from Apple taking the Vision Pro from tech demo device, which is really what it is right now. It is just a tech demo device. It's a proof of concept. And to take that to something more ubiquitous, like a MacBook style device, a useful luxury electronics product that people buy just as much because of the elegance and style and promotion and status effects than they do what it can be as a practical device. But in the meantime, they are going to be using their marketing clout to help mainstream all of this, which is going to help Meta in the long term anyway. At least it should, in theory. What will turn the tide for normies, though, is not clever tech, it's not gimmick or execution or even style or marketing. What MR needs is like a TikTok. And I don't mean it needs a TikTok app, but something that changes how people do things. TikTok wasn't the first short video platform, a long way from it, but something about it made it catch and stick. And now it has a whole subculture all of its own. There is a style of content that is living there, and a style of interaction between people that is living there, that is completely sort of TikTok flavored. The same used to be true about YouTube, by the way, many years ago, before it got all genericized. But whatever this kind of thing is for VR/MR, or spatial computing as Apple want to call it, reviving a term that's been long dead now, I've no idea what that TikTok style thing would be for VR. If I did, man, you know, I'd be selling the idea. I'd be doing it. I'd be making it. I'd be on my way to being a rich, out of touch butt munch as well. Because, you know, isn't that the capitalist dream of us all? To get so rich we lose touch with humanity. But it will be mixed media. It'll be user-driven, but under corporate oppression, of course. It'll be monetized, of course it will. It'll be something between TikTok and Twitter and YouTube. It'll be a social exchange type thing, but in a way that only really works properly in MR or VR. And whatever it winds up being, I'm sure Zuckerberg will not come up with it because he's not really an ideas guy. He had one idea once and he got lucky of it. Everything ever since he's just bought with the money he made from that one idea once he got lucky with. And it wasn't even his idea. He stole it. But whatever, he will absolutely do what he always does and shamelessly copy it and fail miserably at copying it again because he's a moron who never learns his lesson. So anyway, if anyone wants to sponsor me to get an Apple Vision Pro so I can make content about it directly and have some personal experience with it, no thank you. Can you just send me the cash instead? There are so many other things I could spend that money on than an Apple Vision Pro, which I don't need, I don't want. I'm slightly desirous of it just because of the marketing of it. It's a slick looking thing, and I'm interested in the technology of it, but I know for a fact I wouldn't use it. I just wouldn't. Anyway, thank you for watching. I am Blunty. Thank you as always to the patrons scrolling up above there. And I am Blunty. I'll catch you next time.